But tonight, this programme can reveal another challenge to his party in the shape of the controversial views of one of its leading donors. More on that from our political correspondent Michael Crick in a moment. But first, Andy Davis reports from Wales, where Nigel Farage was busy campaigning.
Oxford Street in the centre of Swansea earlier this afternoon. And some of the UKIP faithful have gathered in buoyant mood to welcome their leader to Wales. The UKIP leader was supposed to be here for a campaign walkabout.
Let's hear it then. I'm not a bigot. I know what you stand for.
But in the absence of Mr Farage, it was left to some of his supporters to engage with a handful of protesters bearing socialist worker placards.
Can you now allow me to talk?
You're racist.
Can you now allow me to talk?
Half an hour gone, still no Nigel Farage, and now the exchanges are getting somewhat more heated.
Don't you dare call me a racist, or I'll take you to court for libel. I'm not part of them. I'm not part of them. But I support them because they support the truth.
Meanwhile, on the campaign bus, Nigel Farage is told there's been a scuffle. Clearly frustrated, he cancels the walkabout.
So we're not going. End the conversation. As far as I'm concerned, he has chosen not to come here.
Back on Oxford Street, a party spokesman breaks the news. Cue more street politics.
Well,
it's a no-show from Mr Farage, and as you can see, it's generated a fair bit of excitement here in Swansea. We're told that he's going directly to the Liberty Stadium in Swansea, so we'll go there and see if we can find him. I was just in the lift just here at the stadium with some of your supporters. I heard one of them say that you bottled it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, there you are.
Did you bottle it?
Well, I'm quite happy to fight the political class, but I don't really want to put boxing gloves on to do that.
Did you bottle it over Newark?
No, I had 12 hours to make my mind up over Newark. You know, every single time there's a by-election, you guys say, why aren't you standing in it? You know, I'm leading a political party into a national election campaign in 3 weeks and 1 day, and we intend to win. And I don't want to do anything that deflects us from that.
But this was a big moment for you. I mean, you, a bit like Eastleigh last year, the accusation is that you're scared of engaging
You're obsessed.
with Westminster.
You are obsessed with the House of Commons, you people. Totally obsessed with it. You haven't realised everything's passed the House of Commons by. Real politics doesn't take place in the House of Commons anymore.
Well, our political correspondent Michael Crick is with me in the studio. Michael, you've been talking to one of UKIP's big donors.
Yes, indeed. You may recall, about 11 years ago, there was huge controversy about this book, Women in Trousers, A Rear View, but written by Demetri Marchessini. Well, yesterday I went round to the Belgravia home of Mr Marchessini, just on the off chance, and to my surprise, he agreed to give me what I think is the first television interview. For Mr Marchessini isn't just a man with controversial views who argues that women shouldn't wear trousers, it makes them unattractive, but on a whole range of other subjects as well. And he's also a substantial UKIP donor. Demetri Marchessini, a now retired Greek businessman, was UKIP's 6th biggest individual cash donor last year. He gave £10,000 to the party in February and March last year, which suddenly thrust him and his controversial views, as expressed in his blog, into the media spotlight on subjects such as gay relationships, marriage and slavery, and in particular his view that women deliberately wear trousers to make themselves unattractive to men, a view originally laid out in his book, Women in Trousers, A Rear View. But then this January he bought a large newspaper ad to attack a columnist who denounced Russian homophobia in the run-up to the Sochi Olympics. He said there was no such word. UKIP's reaction was that Marchessini had nothing to do with the party anymore. And yet, only 5 weeks earlier, on Christmas Eve, they'd taken another £5,000 from him, we've discovered. And, as we're about to see, they've often asked him for more. Do you think that the nature of homosexual relationships is different from heterosexual ones?
Oh, completely different. There's no love, only lust. And also the physical actions that they do are completely different.
There's no love in a homosexual relationship?
No, only lust.
What makes you say that?
They go out at night and they pick up 5, 10, 15 different partners in one night. Is that love?
But a lot of homosexuals are in very stable relationships with one person.
But they're not husband and wife. They're roommates, and both of them go out cruising. Homosexual, there's no such thing as fidelity in homosexual relationships. They just all go out looking for action. That's the way it is.
So do you think women should be banned from wearing trousers?
Yes.
What, by law?
They used to be for thousands of years. Do you know that that until 300 years ago, a woman wearing trousers would be executed? There are several reasons not to wear trousers. The first is they don't look as nice as skirts. The second is trousers don't excite men. Only skirts excite men.
Why should women dress to excite men?
Because that's the only way the world is going to continue. If they don't, then men are going to stop them. Do you understand? And may I tell you, with great respect, that the incidence of lovemaking in Western Europe has fallen drastically.
What, because women wear trousers?
Well, I think that's one factor. Another factor is because women work. But the fact is, if men don't make love to women, the Western world is going to disappear. It's already fallen. The birth rate has fallen drastically. The Germans pay people to have children. The sperm rate has fallen drastically in men, drastically from 75 to 55. To have children, you need 35. You're halfway to not having children. So all these things, the point is women have always tried to excite men because women need to get married. And men don't want to get married, so women have to persuade them to get married.
What do you think about the idea of rape within marriage?
There's no such thing. And when you get married, you promise to look after the other person for the rest of their life. You certainly don't promise that you're going to put them in jail.
So you think when a woman gets married,
yeah,
or a man for that matter, they are agreeing to have sex whenever their partner wants?
Well, naturally, with discretion and consideration when they're not feeling well, etc., etc. But they can't say that they've been raped. You can't have rape if you make love on Friday and make love on Sunday. You can't say Saturday is rape. Once a woman accepts, she accepts. And especially when she makes a vow on her wedding day.
Do you think black people were better off by being taken as slaves across the Atlantic?
Yes, because the duration of slavery in Africa was about 6 months. And if they went across the Atlantic, the journey was horrific. But if they survived, then they had a much better duration of life and a better life in America than in the Caribbean than they had in Africa.
You gave £15,000 to UKIP last year.
Yeah.
Are you going to give more money to UKIP?
I have no idea. You know, in politics, a week is a long time, they say.
Have they asked you to give them more money?
They're always asking people for money. They never stop asking for money. I'm not an official of UKIP. I have no position at all, and they are not responsible for my views. I can say what I like, and they say what they like.
No, but a UKIP spokeswoman at the time said that the party no longer had anything to do with you.
Well, she was stupid.
She was stupid.
She was just trying to smooth things over.
And subsequently, in December, you gave them another £5,000.
Yes.
Which rather suggests that relations between you and UKIP are quite good.
The treasurer of UKIP is an old friend of mine, and from time to time he rings me up and asks if I'll help him. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't.
So when did he last ring and ask you for?
Well, really, I don't keep track of his phone calls.
In the last few weeks? Since December?
Can't remember, I'm afraid.
So if he rings this evening, ask for another 5,000?
Well, I'll think about it. But I don't think they need it since they have Mr. Sykes. I'm much less keen to give when they have endless money from Mr. Sykes. Why should we give it? Let him pay.
Well, in a moment I'll be talking to the former Conservative MP, now UKIP's Deputy Chairman, Neil Hamilton. But first, during his meeting with Nigel Farage, our correspondent, Andy Davies, put some of these points to the UKIP leader.
We've done an interview with a man called Demetri Marchessini, a man who said that women shouldn't wear trousers, that there's no such thing as rape within marriage, and, quote, that black people were better off by being taken as slaves across the Atlantic at the time of the slave trade.
Right.
Why is your party taken donations from this man?
I don't know. You'll have to ask the Treasurer, won't you? I mean, I'm sure he gave money in good faith. The money was taken in good faith. And you could look at...
Do you think you should be accepting money from a man with those views?
Possibly not, no. But, ask the Treasurer. I don't run everything.
But do you know what you've done with the £5,000 he gave your party in December?
Oh, yes, I can account for every single penny we've spent in UKIP.
What have you done with this money?
I might even become the Treasurer, why not? Or an accountant. How about that? Shall I become an accountant?
Have you given the money back?
Shall I become an accountant?
Well, have you just answered the question, please? If you would, have you
no idea.
But shouldn't you have an idea, given what this man has said in
I'll say it one
interview?
last time. I'm not an accountant. I'm leading a political party. We're 3 weeks away from a big election, and the one thing Channel 4 News does not want to discuss is the question of open-door immigration to Europe. You'd rather it was all swept under the carpet and we talked about irrelevancies.
Do you think this is irrelevant?
I think we should be talking.
I
think we should be talking about the big political question of the day and the reason that people are turning to UKIP or against UKIP, and it's the attitude towards EU membership and open-door immigration. And that's the real debate in this country, and nobody from your organisation has asked me a single question about that during this campaign.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm joined now by UKIP's Deputy Chairman, Neil Hamilton. Thanks for coming on the programme. Let me put the question to you. Should the party be taking money from a man who expresses views like that? A lot of money.
Well, Mr Marchessini's views, as he said himself, are his own. They're not the views of UKIP. He wasn't requiring us to endorse his views in any shape or form, and of course we don't. So I really don't see what the political point is that you're making here.
But, well, it's a lot of money going into your coffers, and what was interesting is that but last year the party was clearly embarrassed by Mr Marchessini because it distanced itself from him, but was still happy to take another £5,000 on Christmas Eve. Well, that's a lot of money.
What he said is not illegal. We don't endorse his views. What's the political point you're making?
But this is because this is yet another person who's close to your party, a big
close.
supporter of your party, a big
Is he a
supporter of
member?
your party. He's not a member, but he's a big supporter of your party. The sixth biggest individual supporter expressing views like that, and of course he's not the only one who's expressed controversial views in recent days.
His views are not the views of UKIP. What's the point you're making?
What do you think of his views? Do you agree with them?
Well, of course not. Everybody knows that Christine wears the trousers in my household.
Okay. But £15,000 from a man like that, isn't that
what is the point?
You consider it to be dirty money, could you not?
It's not dirty money at all. He's got eccentric views. They're not illegal.
So you're happy to take his money? You're happy to take his money?
Yes. They don't represent the views of UKIP. What he said is not illegal. Why shouldn't we take his money?
The point I'm trying to make, it's a very serious one, because you represent a serious political movement with serious views taken very seriously by the British public.
Yeah.
The accusation as a result of this, but also other things that other candidates of your party have said, is that you're not a serious political organisation.
Well, 38% of the British public, so you said at the beginning of this
it's a lot. I'm not denying the support.
Thinking of voting for UKIP on the 22nd of May. We are a serious political party. What I'm wondering is, are you a serious political programme presenting this man as in any way representing the views of UKIP?
Do you think if the Tory party took £15,000 from a man who expressed those views, that wouldn't make the headlines? That wouldn't be worthy of questions?
I don't think
or
they would make the headlines.
Or
no,
Labour? Absolutely.
I'm absolutely certain they wouldn't make the headlines, because over the last few weeks, both the media and the political establishment have been throwing the kitchen sink at UKIP, representing people who are of no importance whatsoever as being representative of UKIP's opinions, which is quite false. And the only response to the British public, who are outside the Westminster bubble, is to say, we're fed up with all this mudslinging, we're going to support UKIP. And that's why we're doing better and better and better with every day that passes.
Do you think these views, and I'll read you the quotes again, rape, there's no such thing as rape in a marriage.
Well, of course I don't agree.
Gays are only after lust, not after love. Do you agree with that?
Are you seriously imagining that these are the views of UKIP, or indeed of me?
But you're happy to take his money.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that we're endorsing his views.
So where do you stop then? Whose money are you also happy to take?
We don't interrogate people when they give donations to our party any more than the other parties
But shouldn't you know where the money comes from, what the views are behind that money,
say,
especially when it's £15,000?
Interview every donor to our party?
If they're that big, perhaps you should, yes.
Well, and all parties should do the same.
Well, indeed, absolutely. I'm sure they do.